Hello, Sage Community Nutrition students. Thank you for listening in today. I sincerely apologize that I was unable to present live to you last week, but my work schedule changed last minute and I couldn't make it. So today I'm going to talk to you about the world of school nutrition, where I started my RD career as a local level operator and now hold a federal position. I apologize if this is a little choppy throughout. I'm using PowerPoint to record, and it's a new process for me. So anyways, my name is Becky Fowler. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. I left there in my early 20s to go work on a cruise ship and travel the world. That led me to Northeast Florida, where I met Dan, and I was with him for 18 of his 20 years of active duty submarine service. And he retired from the Navy last year in June, and he now works on the naval base in Groton, Connecticut. That's a picture of our family from his retirement ceremony last year. So I attended SAGE when Dan was stationed in Saratoga, and we moved to Westerly, Rhode Island shortly after I graduated. We have three kids, whom I lovingly refer to as the children of the corn. Annabelle is 16. Yes, she is a genetics phenom. I'm 5'3", my husband's 5'10". She's currently over 6 feet and still growing. But she does love volleyball and not basketball. We have Patrick, who's 13, and Jack turns 7 in 2 weeks. We're interested to see if they're going to turn out to be as tall as their sister. We also have 2 dogs and a cat. So I was one of those people. It took me a little while to figure out what I wanted to do with my life professionally. And during a conversation one night, right before I turned 30, my husband and I were having a conversation, and I finally figured out that the direction for my professional life was to get a nutrition degree. So I started that process in 2011. I graduated cum laude in 2014. I was in the 2015 dietetic internship class at SAGE, and then I plowed through to finish the Master's in Applied Nutrition in May of 2016. So during my internship, my food service management preceptor, he was a school district food service director, he offered me a part-time job just to kind of make a little money, get a little experience while I was finishing my master's degree. Little did I know at that moment that a year later I would actually be running the program myself. In the fall of 2015, he decided to retire and asked me if I would take over the program. So my last semester of grad school, I was trying to fix this school food service program that needed some help. I was writing a request for proposal, which is a giant process in itself, to win the bid to keep this program as a self-operated. I did end up beating out 2 food service management companies and was named the director in April of 2016. My team and I went to work and we started building an awesome program together. So through that work, I was named the 2019-20 School Nutrition Association of Connecticut's Rising Star Director of the Year, and in October of 2021, I did achieve my school nutrition specialist certification. And now I do work as a program specialist for FNS, which I will talk about in a little while. But I just wanted to show you this picture when I was in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and this is the Midwest Regional Office. It's beautiful in downtown Chicago, and you can see Lake Michigan in the background. So first I'm going to cover my time as the food service director with Stonington. It's a district in southeastern Connecticut that has 4 schools and 1 alternative education program that's housed at their central office, and that's for students who just have a little trouble being in mainstream classes. So it's a pretty small district. They have just under 2,000 students, and my last year we were still in COVID. And so all the students were eating for free. So the district itself, they have 1,966 students, but 1,874 of them are in district. I oversaw 18 team members when I was fully staffed. The students were eating for free my last year there because it was still COVID, like I said. And now they have state funding that assists them to pay for meals. So all students eat breakfast for free, and for lunch, the state covers the cost of the reduced price students. They are about 25% free and reduced. So that percentage is based off of families who submit free and reduced meal applications and get qualified that way, or they may be directly certified, and that's when the State Department of Social Services provides a list of names to the school districts, and it could be SNAP benefits, Husky or Medicaid, which is the state insurance in Connecticut, if they are homeless or a foster child. And then they are qualified for free meals. School nutrition guidelines are federally mandated by the USDA's Food and Nutrition Service, who I work for now, but then each state is responsible for overseeing the school food authorities, or SFAs, which is what we call school districts in the school nutrition world. And while states must follow the federal guidelines at a minimum, they do have the autonomy to have more stringent guidelines. Connecticut has some of the strictest guidelines in the country. For example, in their school cafeterias, they can only sell milk, water, or 100% juice as beverages, while in other states, the schools can have like full-on coffee bars in their high schools, which was always very interesting to me. This is a list of school nutrition programs, and all the programs with an asterisk by them are those that I ran during my time at Stonington. So the National School Lunch Program, which is the biggest program by far, School Breakfast Program, there's an after-school snack program, Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, Special Milk Program, Summer Food Service Program, the Seamless Summer Option, and Healthy Food Certification, which pertains to Connecticut only. So these are the NSLP guidelines, and the title is a link, so you can click it and go directly to the meal pattern guidelines on the FNS website. I know this chart looks overwhelming, but don't let it be. I'll break it down the best I can. So there are 5 components that must be served daily: meat alternate, grain, fruit, vegetable, and a milk. And so 5 components are offered. In order to be considered a reimbursable meal, students have to take 3 of the components, and one of those 3 components must be a fruit or a vegetable. The NSLP guidelines are separated into 3 age groups. So you've got K-5 or elementary, 6-8 or middle school, and 9-12 or high school. And this is because we don't want to be feeding kindergartners the same amount that we feed like a high school athlete. So then they're also, excuse me, broken down to show daily and weekly requirements so that school food authorities know the minimum portions they need to serve on a daily basis, but then everything is averaged over the week. So vegetables are the most interesting category, if you ask me, because they have to offer 2 different vegetables a day, but they have subgroup categories that they need to meet over the course of the week. So for example, legumes need to be served once per week to meet the half cup requirement. They don't have to be served every day. But what a lot of schools do is they will serve what's called a rainbow tray. And that means that they're offering all 5 of the subgroup categories daily to make sure that their bases are covered and kids have the opportunity to take all of, the different varieties of vegetables. Interestingly, the milk requirement is the only item that is the same for all grade levels. And the other specifications at the bottom of the chart, those are averaged over the week or 5 days. So therefore, like at your high school, you could have a meal that might contain 900 calories. So it's a little bit over that average range, but then the next day you could offer like a soup and sandwich option that might only be 700 calories. So that's a great, opportunity for students, and it keeps you within the appropriate guidelines. These are the school breakfast guidelines, and the title is also a live link to the FNS website. Breakfast only has 3 required components daily, and that is fruit, milk, and grains. They are allowed to serve vegetables and meat alternates at breakfast in addition to those 3 components though. So we would offer items like breakfast sandwiches or yogurt parfaits, and those were actually 2 of the favorite breakfasts among the students. And like the NSLP guidelines, there are daily minimum requirements that then get averaged out over the course of the week. So these are the requirements for the Healthy Food Certification that I had mentioned a couple of slides ago. It is a state-funded incentive program in Connecticut only, and it pertains to the a la carte or snack foods that are sold in schools, and each district that participates gets an extra 10 cents per lunch that they sell. So even in my very small district that I've talked about, this would equal about $15,000 extra per year, and we just had to follow the guidelines. So everything had to be 51% or greater whole grains, or the first ingredient had to be an identifiable food group. Combination foods required a 1/4 cup of fruit or vegetable, and they were really strict about this because it is a federal guideline, but they really mandated it in Connecticut that no competitive foods can be sold from midnight until 30 minutes after the school day. So no fundraisers, no bake sales, nothing like that. So how does funding work for school food authorities? The primary source of revenue is the reimbursement received for each meal sold. This chart is also a bit overwhelming because it has a lot of information on it, but we are only going to focus on the contiguous states for the NSLP and the SBP. SFAs will receive federal reimbursement. They get $4.25 per lunch and $2.28 per breakfast for students who qualify for free meals. So again, that's either an application or they're directly certified. $3.85 per lunch and $1.98 per breakfast for students who qualify for reduced price meals, and 40 cents per lunch and 38 cents per breakfast for students who are full price, so they don't qualify for meal benefits at all. These rates do change annually, so again, the title on the slide is a live link, and it takes you to the FNS page so that you can see all of the reimbursement rates for like the last 20 years or something. Commodity food funding is a way that SFAs can help to keep their food costs down. So each state is given an allocation annually, and it's then divvied up to each SFA based on the previous year's participation. So in Stonington, I would receive roughly $50,000 per year to purchase food items. And there are 3 options to use this money. The first is the DoD Produce Program, and it's basically what it sounds like. SFAs can allocate a certain dollar amount of their choice to help purchase fresh produce from a distributor who's contracted with the state. The second option is direct delivery, commonly known as brown box items, and they have a lot of frozen options like ground beef, all beef burger patties, diced chicken, fruits and vegetables, but then they'll also have items like cheese sticks, shredded cheese, shelf-stable items like canned goods, and these are all really beneficial when you are trying to keep your food costs down, especially for your more expensive items like protein. So, like Nacho Day was great because we had the commodity ground beef. It's a U.S. grown product, not grown, I guess you don't really, well, I guess you grow cows. Anyway, and then the last option is further processing, which is buying a certain amount of pounds a food from a manufacturer, and then you get a discount every time you purchase one of those items from your distributor. So the easiest example that I use is Tyson Chicken, because everybody knows Tyson Chicken. So I would buy like 2,000 pounds of food from Tyson Chicken, and then every time I ordered a case of like patties, tenders, nuggets, I would get a discount on that. An additional way to keep food and product costs down was to be part of a cooperative purchasing group. I know I've said it a couple times, we were a small district, and so we grouped together with other small districts, and that increases the amount of products that we use, and it helps reduce the prices that we would pay for whatever we needed to order, whether it was food, paper products, uniforms, equipment, repairs, things like that. So I had 4 schools and 1,800 students. I can't compete with Hartford schools that, has like 55 schools and 27,000 students. And, we're not even going to talk about districts like New York City public schools that can pretty much get whatever they want because they have just the volume needed. So, other things, like I said, we participated in the healthy food certification. We also offered catering, a la carte snacks, and we also took advantage of grant opportunities whenever we could. So for Dairy on the Go grant, I was awarded money and I bought really nice blenders so that we could make smoothies for the students. The equipment assistance grant, we were combining middle schools and our fridge was like leaking rusty water. So with the equipment assistance grant, I was able to purchase a new reach-in fridge for our middle school. One thing you may not think of when you think of school nutrition is marketing. So this is really an important part of selling your program to the students and the families because you have to make them want to spend their money if they're paid students. And like I said, I had a low free and reduced percentage, so I really had to sell to my families because most of them paid full price. So we would do things like we would have menus announced daily for the students. We sent letters and emails to the families and social media. Social media is huge because that way the families and the parents get to see what you're serving their kids every day. Because all you really see on the news is the hashtag still, thanks Michelle Obama, when they changed the guidelines several years ago. And I loved being able to put beautiful pictures on social media and be like, no, this is actually what your kids are eating. They're getting a full meal and it's delicious. So I would also hold focus groups or give surveys to the students, getting their feedback, oh my gosh. Getting their feedback was always very important to me because those were our customers. And also, kids do not hold back. They will be honest with you. One of my saddest and funniest stories that I have is I was trying to do a play on the KFC popcorn chicken bowls with the mashed potatoes, the popcorn chicken, the corn, and the gravy, but we didn't have any breaded popcorn chicken. So I was like, oh, well, we'll just use unbreaded diced chicken, and a high school student literally told me that it looked like dog food. So let me just say, you have to have a little bit of a thick skin and definitely a sense of humor to work in school nutrition. So these were a few of the additional marketing tactics that we used. My middle school staff was trying to up their breakfast participation, and so they took it upon themselves to make a homemade sandwich board. Denise over here on the right is who made it, and Rhonda had no problem putting that thing on and going out, and she would just parade up and down the parent drop-off line and the school bus lines and, talk to the kids and the parents and just try and convince them to come in and get breakfast. Because at that time it was free, so why not, right? But one of my favorite things that we ever did was getting food safe markers, and we would write positive messages on bananas. This got a ton of great feedback from students and staff. Lots of smiles in the cafeterias on the days that we did that. Like the kids just really got a kick out of it. And it also got them to eat fruit. Training and continuing education are very important to me. One of my favorite sayings is that to know better is to do better, and it rings very true in school nutrition. You have to think outside the box, but it's really easy to find resources so you're not reinventing the wheel all of the time. So some of the trainings that we did, the Humane Society actually offers a free training for school nutrition professionals, and it's a vegan cooking class. So they come to you, they bring a lot of the products. You can use some of the things that you'll have in your kitchens. We would do training at staff meetings, conferences, and we would tap into other districts. I highly recommend checking out New London Public Schools, which partners with Brigade. And I think that they may be in New York City Public Schools. But NLPS has a phenomenal food service director, and probably like 8 years ago, she partnered with a chef organization to bring classically trained chefs into schools, and they're basically like kitchen managers, and then in turn they train just your everyday lunch ladies and dudes. And the cool thing about NLPS is that they make 80% of the foods that they serve to their students from scratch, and it is an incredible program to see, and the food is so delicious. So some of the other things I'm going to highlight as we go through these next few slides are farm to school, fun menu days, scratch cooking, and then heavens, we're going to talk about COVID. So these are some of our training experiences. In the top left, we have Alex, who is one of the chefs that works in New London Public Schools. So he actually works for Brigade, but then he works in the schools. And he came and spent a day with me, and we just went over a lot of stuff. And then at the end of the day, he did a training for my kitchen staff. In the middle, that's my staff at the School Nutrition Association annual conference that takes place each fall. In the bottom right, that's Vicky. She was one of my kitchen managers, and she's making a breakfast sushi wrap, which was part of the vegan cooking class. So it's just a tortilla with peanut butter, granola, and then you roll up a banana in there and you slice it up, and it looks like fake sushi. Not really, but it is delicious, it's easy, and it's vegan. And then in the bottom left and the top right, that was the last back to school training that I was in the district for. And I had colored hairnets, and I made them all choose a hairnet, and then based on what color you chose is what team you were on, so that way they couldn't like partner with who they wanted. And then you got tape, marshmallows, and spaghetti, dry spaghetti noodles, and whoever built the tallest tower won. So it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of laughs. You know, we had been in the throes of COVID for a couple of years, so it was just a nice back to school fun thing to do, and they had a great time with it. These were some of our farm to school opportunities. I love farm to school. I love supporting local farmers, bringing that into the kids, you know, because not every student gets opportunities like that. Like not every student gets to go apple picking with their family in the fall, or, you know, their parents don't have time, maybe they don't have the money. So to be able to bring that into the school for the kids was a really great experience. We had a professional development day. It was a beautiful day, like at the end of September, and October is National Farm to School Month. And there's actually a week in Connecticut that's Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids. So we went to an apple orchard, my staff and I did, and we went apple picking for the day, and then we brought all those apples back and served them to the kids the next week. And it was great because then you're promoting a local farmer, you know, literally where it was grown because you picked it yourself. And we just had a lovely fall day together. That's me up in the tree in the top middle getting some of the apples down. in the top right, that's just the group of us after we got done. And then the bottom middle and the bottom right that's Farmer Andy from Stoneacre Farms in Stonington, Connecticut, or you can also look up the Yellow Farmhouse. And it is a farm, and they took the big yellow farmhouse and they actually turned it into an educational center. So they partner with the school district a lot for a variety of different things. So we were doing, I think, our Thanksgiving meal that year, and he brought in mini butternut squash, which was so little and so cute and also so delicious. I am a huge proponent of scratch cooking. Um, that's another thing, you know, I always say lunch ladies love your kids like nobody else does. And it's so true. And when they are really making delicious foods from scratch, cooking for these kids, they just put so much love and passion into it. And so when I started kind of giving them the green light and encouraging to do that, they just took off with it. Um, so in the middle, this is Wendy Ann. She's going to pop up several times in this presentation. She was one of my managers at an elementary school, and like that picture of her says it all. That was our Thanksgiving celebration meal, and that is just how she is every day. Her personality is as big as her hair, and yes, I can say that because I would say it to her. And she just loved her job and she loved her kids, and being able to provide meals like that for them was a joy to her. So in the top right and the bottom left, that was actually one of the first meals that we did when we scratch cooked. And it was so popular, and I didn't think it would that be it. I did not think it would be as big of a deal as it was, but we did that meal, and then the school board found out about it. And a few days later at their meeting, they gave us a shout out, and it was just such a neat, rewarding feeling. So it's literally just chicken noodle soup in the top right, and then in the bottom left, those are black bean brownies. I think we did this in January, and January like 7th or 9th, something like that, but it's National Black Bean Day. And so we would incorporate things like that into the menu if it was a national day. And the kids loved it. Like, they raved about it. And we got to the point where with the chicken noodle, we were making that at least once a month, especially during the winter months, chicken noodle and grilled cheese. The kids would love it. The top left, so commodity foods, the brown box. So we could actually get like whole pieces of chicken. So that is an actual chicken breast with the bone in, all of that. Our middle school was doing some Olympics competition, and several of the classes had chosen Africa. And they had asked me, they're like, hey, can you do some meals based on the countries? I was like, what am I going to do for Africa? Ironically, the School Nutrition Association magazine had a whole article on foods from Africa. So we have an African spiced chicken. We did sweet potato fries with a harissa yogurt dipping sauce, and then an East African tomato and cucumber salad. And my kitchen manager was like, I'm really worried about this. I feel like I'm going to have a lot left over. She literally sold out that day. Like, teachers who never eat in the cafeteria came down to get lunch that day because it was such a big deal. And they loved it. It really was delicious. And then in the bottom right, I don't like prepackaged pastry stuff. I don't know, like the texture is weird for me. And so Gold Medal makes a really great whole grain muffin mix. So we would use that, and we would use our commodity frozen blueberries, and we would make blueberry muffins for breakfast. They're whole grain, they meet the requirements, they're fresh baked. So like you would walk through the school and it would just smell so good. So, part of what makes all of this important, I'm going to share a little story with you that happened a few weeks ago. My husband and I went and saw a comedy show with some friends, and we went out to dinner beforehand. And we're sitting at the table, and the server comes up. She takes our drink order. She leaves. She comes back, and she's looking at me, and she's like, "Okay, I know this is going to sound really weird, but I feel like I know you from somewhere." And I was like, okay. Because we were like 30 minutes from home. So I was like, okay. She said, "Do you work in a school?" And I kind of chuckled. And I said, "Well, where did you go to school?" And she said, "Stonington." So then I'm like laughing. I said, "Yes, I used to be the food service director there." And she said, "I knew that I recognized you. I remember you being in the cafeteria sometimes." And I was like, "Yep, that was me. I was just, the lady who would hang out," because a lot of the kids didn't know who I was. I was kind of a behind the scenes position. And I jokingly said to her, um, "I hope that you liked the food when you were there." And I'm really sorry, I get choked up when I tell this story. And she looked at me and she said, "Actually, I did. Um, I lived in a house where we didn't have food at home. And so the school meals were such an important part, like they were my favorite part of the day." And when you're a food service director, it can be tough to connect with the kids. And like, that that's happening, but to talk to a student years later and hear her tell me directly the impact that my work did for her and subsequently her brother, um, it just reminds you why you do the work that you do, why, you know, you stretch the limits to just be really great and make sure that those kids are getting what they need. Because you are meeting the most basic need of these kids, and not all of them get that at home. So I think that's really important for people to understand. So once you start to give your staff a little bit of leeway, they really will embrace it and take off with it. So these are some of the menu items that my staff started asking me, "Hey, can we do this? Can we do this?" And I was like, "Sure, like, let's do it. Let's see how the kids like it." So the top left actually became one of my favorite meals. That is a buffalo chicken grilled cheese sandwich. We would just use our commodity diced chicken, mix it with some buffalo sauce, use some more of our commodity sliced cheese, and then put it on panini bread. Huge hit at our high school because it's a nice big sandwich. It's filling. It's going to let the kids power through their day and not be hungry when they leave the cafeteria. The bottom left is so cute. That's one of our Halloween meals. That's a mummy dog. And we would, just give everything like ghoulish green beans or, tasty tater toes. Just give them ridiculous names. The kids get a kick out of it. It's a meal that that they're going to eat. The bottom right is mac and cheese. Who doesn't love that? The cheese was a commodity food. The mixed vegetables in the tray, those were some of our brown box meals, and then the fruit would come from our DoD produce. So, you're really making these fantastic meals and keeping your costs down. And then the top right is just the side salads that we would serve every day at our high school. Although I'd love to take credit for all of the recipes, like I said previously, I really love to utilize resources that are already available and not have to recreate the wheel for myself. These are just a few of the places I would go look for new ideas and recipes. The Institute of Child Nutrition, they are actually part of the USDA, which is interesting to me, and it's located at the University of Mississippi in Oxford, Mississippi. Ironically, that is where my husband's family lives. Healthy school recipes, really great social media pages called Tips for School Meals That Rock. It's on Instagram and Facebook. And then other schools, like I said, New London, they make 80% of their stuff from scratch. I would just call them up and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for a recipe for this item. What can you give me?" They would send it over. And then East Hampton Public Schools, phenomenal director. She actually just left to go work for the state, but they have some really great things going on there as well. So now we're going to talk about the topic that we still cannot escape, and that is COVID. This was a really crazy time for everyone. You know, just what an experience. But I think one of the silver linings that came out of it was the recognition on the importance of school meals and what school nutrition provides to students. So not only were we providing nourishment for our students, but the familiarity of the meals that the kids see at school regularly, and then being able to have that at home, like, it was comfort. It was the comfort that it provided them when we were all stuck at home. So the top picture is a few of my staff members and I, you know, on Friday, March 13th, 2020. And I had been called into a meeting that morning with the superintendent, you know, the local politicians, all of the principals, just like, okay, what's going to happen? Oh, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks and then we're coming back. Hey, by the way, can you hand out food? We literally had no idea what we were doing. You know, so we were like trying to plan for Monday, but like nobody had ever experienced this. We didn't know what to do. So, you know, the world shut down, excuse me, on, you know, Friday the 13th, and everybody went home. But my staff and I, we were at work bright and early Monday, March 16th of 2020. I told everyone to go to their respective schools, pack as much food as you can into your car, and come to the high school, and we would just kind of go from there. So the top picture is my staff and I planning that Friday. And then that was us just, you know, we started with prepping just like sandwiches. We eventually did evolve into the hot meals, meals at home. We were handing out hot breakfast in the morning, and the kids really liked it. And then the bottom is us at our little tent and just waiting for people to come and see us and just see what was going to happen. So we started handing out meals that Monday, and lo and behold, a news crew showed up on Friday to interview us. So we were all a little taken by surprise, but we were doing things a little differently, and they had caught wind of how we were handling our distribution. So I'm going to try and play this clip, and we're going to see how it goes. Okay, I can't get it to play, but once you get this, if you want to go watch the clip. So we were distributing meals, but we actually partnered with our special services department because they had van drivers that were not working, and so they were helping us, and we were actually delivering meals straight to students' homes. Parents could they would call and get their name put on a list, and then we would deliver meals to them every day. Sometimes I still don't even know how we made it through that time. You know, but I can tell you for sure that it was my team that got me through. So like I said, my husband was retired from the Navy, but when COVID hit, he was stationed in Hawaii, and I was living here in Rhode Island with the 3 kids and working. I was fortunate. We had someone staying with us who could stay here while my kids were distance learning, and I would go to work every day. And so, you know, just the strength of my team and the things that they would come up with. We did have a lot of come to Jesus meetings, because that's what happens when you put people in a small room together and there's a pandemic going on. But, you know, there were a lot of pivots and adjustments. but they were there every step of the way. Um, Even though we were distributing meals, we still had to ensure that each child was getting the required components. And so we would portion everything out into bags or souffle cups, and then we would just have a production line down the table. You know, the meat alternate, the grain, the fruit, the vegetable. We did leave the milk out front, where we were distributing everything, and we would pack that as people came through the line. But we still had to make sure that we were serving reimbursable meals. Um, so I do want to mention specifically Wendy Ann and Sharon, and they are the two ladies with all the milk crates. They were two of my kitchen managers, and they are both still at the school district and managers. They are absolutely amazing, and they were my right and left hands, and they got me through all of it. So I do have to give them just a little shout out. So, you know, as you can see in these pictures, this is what we were sending home. This is how we would prepare all of the components to send to the kids. And that's just what we did for months. So in the first 5 months of the pandemic, we distributed over 65,400 meals to children. I should say children because it was kids 18 and under. And keep in mind, like, we were a little district. We were tiny but mighty. Once the students came back, we were in the hybrid learning during the 2020-2021 school year. So half the students were there on Monday, Tuesday, the other half were there on Thursday, Friday. On Wednesday, everybody distance learned, and that's when they would like clean the buildings, and we would do a lot of prep work. So during that time, we would repeat the menu twice a week. We distributed meals on Mondays and Wednesdays for the distance learners, and it was tough for us because even though all the kids were eating free, half of them weren't in school at any given time, so we were operating at a loss. Thankfully, in April of 2021, all of our students came back 4 days per week, and then our revenue like multiplied exponentially. During the 2021-2022 school year, which was my last year there, all of our students were still eating free, and many families utilized that. Like, our numbers were through the roof. It was amazing. We made close to $1 million that year, which meant I could actually afford to stock up the kitchens on smallwares, you know, or small kitchen tools, new uniforms, pretty much anything that they needed or wanted, they got. So in this picture, another interesting fact is that high schools across the nation, many high schools, not all of them, but many, they double as Red Cross shelters. And the food service staff is, dun, 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 essential personnel. So there was a hurricane coming. Hurricane Henri came through in August of 2021. And the food service staff is required to assist because we're the team with the space and the manpower and the food to feed and provide for anyone who is unhoused during disasters. So whether it's a flood or, like I said, Hurricane Henri, whatever it was, like, that's what we had to do. So you can guess who's there with me, Wendy Ann and Sharon, my two trusty kitchen managers. You know, and they showed up, no questions asked, not a big deal. We were fortunate we did not have to stay overnight, but if it had been a multi-day event, we would have been required to stay on site. So here we are getting ready to feed a few people with the person from the Red Cross. And I hope you all like the shirt that I'm wearing in this picture, because I had to represent. Because I love Sage. I had a great experience there. So by the end of 2021, I had kind of come to a crossroads in my career. I suffered a loss in December of 2020 that really changed who I was as a person. And the stress and burnout of COVID had been affecting me, you know, because we never stopped. And I hope nobody is uncomfortable talking about money, because we are going to talk about that a little bit. It's a very important topic for dietitians, and I have no qualms to talk about it. So not only was I just like burned out and stressed out, but I was the lowest paid director or administrator in my district. By this time, I was a director. I had over 6 years experience, the master's degree, the RD, and I have the SNS certification. And I was getting paid $68,000 a year, while my counterparts in the district, like the director of technology, the director of operations, they were getting paid $125,000 and above. And the salaries of other administrators just went up from there. I should also mention that I was the only administrator that didn't have an assistant or secretary. So I didn't have any help. Like, I did everything by myself. Not to scare anyone away from school nutrition, because it is a fantastic field, but it can be very tough. And I am one who has no problem advocating for myself. So I went to my boss and I was like, listen, we need to negotiate a new contract. So he said, well, do your research. I said, okay. He underestimated the fact that I was a Russell Sage grad and a dietitian. So he was presented with a 10-page PowerPoint presentation of why we needed to renegotiate my salary. And he still had the audacity to tell me no. And ironically, while I was researching, I started looking into state and federal school nutrition jobs. So I kind of had those in my back pocket just to see how everything was going to go. And also during that time, I had started learning about meditation and manifestation. So I put the universe to the test. I was so unhappy, and I knew that something had to change. So I had submitted a grant proposal to the Connecticut Department of Agriculture for an aquaculture project to bring local seafood, because I should have said that. Stonington and where I live, like, we are right on the coast of the ocean. And so I had worked with someone and we wrote this great proposal, but then like I started thinking about the work that it was going to take if I got this funding. And when I started thinking about the amount of work it was going to take to execute it, I did not feel joy. I felt dread. And so I was walking on my treadmill at home one night and I put it out into the universe. I said it out loud. I said, listen, if I get this grant, I will stay in this position for one more year and see it through, because it was such a cool project, and I wanted to see it through. But if I get denied, then I know it is time to go. And I kid you not, like an hour later, I checked my email and found out that I had been denied for the grant. And so I knew 100% that it was time to go and for the job search to like really start. And I tell you this story because our field is so vast that you don't need to stay in a position that you are unhappy in. There are so many different things that you can do, and I firmly believe everybody has a calling, and I just really urge you to listen to where the universe is calling you to go in the field of dietetics, or wherever it's going to lead you. I will say, once I made that decision, I was very open with my staff about it. And I had always asked them to please let me know if they were seeking employment anywhere else. And they deserved that respect from me, because they just deserved it. And, I was at a point where I knew that they deserved better than what I had to offer them anymore. And so me leaving was, it was for myself, but it was out of respect for so many things. Because if you've lost your passion, there's just no point. So once my path was set, things took off pretty quick. Uh, the universe was speaking to me in February of 2022, and I applied for my current position in April of that year, and I had my job offer by June. So I know to some you're going to be like, well, that's like months. That takes a long time. But let's remember this is the government that we're referring to. So a situation like this for me, it was really at lightning speed. And so I technically work for Food and Nutrition Service, which is housed under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Um, and I love it. So like I just said, I technically work for an agency called Food and Nutrition Service, or FNS, but it's easier just to tell people I work for the USDA because nobody has heard of FNS. Um, so the crazy thing is that we are the smallest agency housed under the USDA, but we actually take up 70% of the budget because we run all of the nutrition assistance programs. Um, so as you can see, I circled kind of where I fall under the USDA. FNS is broken down into 8 locations. So we have our national office, which is in Alexandria, Virginia. Sorry about that. And 7 regional offices. So I work out of the Northeast Regional Office, or we call it NERO, and that's housed in Boston, right next to the TD Gardens building. So it's really fun when I go into the office for work because TD Garden is right there. um, to work in a regional office, you are required to live in the region, or you can live on one of the bordering states. But national office employees can live anywhere in the US. So if any of you applied because you live in New York, you are eligible to work in NERO, or you can work in MERO, which is the Mid-Atlantic Regional Office, and they're housed in Robbinsville, New Jersey. So in the regional offices, we work directly with the state child nutrition offices, and we refer to them as the state agencies or SAs. And we provide like technical assistance, guidance. So when I was a local level operator, food service director, any reports I had, questions, technical things, I would report to the Connecticut State Department of Education. So in turn, the Connecticut State Department of Education does all of those same things to NERO. And interestingly, there are 55 state agencies. So there obviously are the 50 states, but then we also have 5 territories. So there's Guam, American Samoa, the Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. NERO oversees New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Yes, we do get to travel there occasionally, and FNS pays for all of it, which is fabulous. I'm slotted for the USVI audit next fiscal year, and I tell my boss regularly that like my bags were packed yesterday and I'm ready to go. But actually that February is a really nice time to go. So in our office as a whole, we have about 100 people who work there, but we have different programs. So, there's the really high-ranking people that work in the front office. That's what we refer to it as. And then there's programs like SNAP, WIC, and what I do in the school nutrition branch. But there are like 10 people who work in my branch and do the same job that I do. Currently, there are 15 federal nutrition assistance programs, but this year we will be adding a 16th program called the Summer EBT or SEBT program. So I work with the child nutrition programs, and I've italicized the actual programs that I work with. And yes, one thing you will learn about government is everything is an acronym. So I did make sure to put all the acronyms on there for you. Um, so one of the things that was toughest for me, like a really tough transition, is as a director, I had to be proficient in many areas of school nutrition. So in addition to National School Lunch and breakfast, I had to know about summer feeding. I had to know about the commodity foods. Um, but in this position, I don't do anything with that. Those are different departments in my office that oversee all of that. So I know you're asking yourself, what does a federal lunch lady do? So here I'm going to discuss some of my roles, and in the next slide, I'll talk about some of my specific duties. So I am a program specialist, and I work in the school nutrition program branch, which is in the child nutrition division. Um, I'm the liaison for the New Hampshire Department of Education. So, like I was saying, any policy questions, if they need technical assistance, the reports that they have to file, that all comes to me and I handle it appropriately, like whatever they're needing done. If it's a policy question, let's say they have a local level operator who had a question or has something going on, they ask the state agency, hey, can you explain this to me? And the state agency says, nope, I can't explain that to you. So then they contact me and I will do the research. If I cannot find the answer, then I message national office and they will do the research on their end. Don't have to do that too often, but it's nice knowing that it's there. So I'm also a member of our office's Nutrition and Wellness Committee. They like anybody can be on it, but when they have new dietitians who are hired in, they actually ask them if they want to be on that committee. So it's nice because you do get to work with people from the other departments and branches. We have people from WIC, people from SNAP, people from schools. So there's not a lot of opportunity to get to know people from the other branches because we don't go into the office. So that's one of the things I like about it. So we present health-related items at all employee meetings. We do email campaigns, and it's really just to promote overall wellness. It's not all related to food. It can be about sleep. In December, we had an all-employee recall, so everybody had to come to the office, and we did a session on mindful management. So there was mindful management through eating, mindful management through exercise, and I worked with one of my colleagues, and we did mindful management through meditation. So it's really an all-encompassing, like whole body wellness type of stuff that we do. I am on a work group. I participate in the Child Nutrition State Systems Work Group, and this basically refers to the computer systems that the state agencies use when they're processing monthly claims for the SFAs, when they do reporting, when they go out to the local levels and perform their audits. So I was in Chicago 2 weeks ago for a planning meeting. We have a big conference that we're hosting in August. And that was the picture that I showed you at the very beginning when I was out in their office. And I mean, really, the view is so spectacular from there. I primarily work from home, which is phenomenal. I love it. But I do have to travel on average about every 4 to 6 weeks. The nice thing is that all of my travel is paid for by FNS, and we are allowed to sign up and collect like the honors points for hotels and air or train travel. One of the nice things about being in New England is being able to take the Amtrak everywhere. I had never done that before, and I did it for the first time last year. And when I have local travel, that is the way to go. I enjoy it because I can sit there and get work done, and I don't have to deal with traffic. Here's a snapshot of the work I do on a day-to-day basis. Yes, I really do have 10 minutes blocked off of my calendar each morning to meditate after my youngest gets on the bus. Um, FNS, at least under this current administration, they are very adamant about employee health and well-being, which is great for being on the wellness committee. Um, there's actually a team member he either works in the Western region or Mountain Plains, and he does a 30-minute session every Monday called Mindfulness Mondays. And he leads us in a short meditation, and then he gives a presentation on a variety of topics. Again, overall whole body health and well-being. So it could be just a variety of things. In Nero, we have a weekly virtual call with our state agency directors. It's a way for them to ask us questions, but more importantly, it gives them the opportunity to connect with each other and kind of bounce ideas off of them, or, if somebody's been through a similar situation, they can kind of network about it. So we do have a lot of monthly meetings and trainings. In the miscellaneous column, I did link our code of federal regulations, and this is where the basis of our guidelines are housed. It is very technical, so if you go and look at it and try and read it, don't stress yourself out. It's taken me, that's the other really hard part of my job, is learning how to read the CFRs and then translate them into what it actually means in layman's terms. And then I've also listed the topics that I'm responsible for in our branch. We call those functional areas. So these are what we're expected to be like the subject matter expert in our branch. And I don't expect anybody to know what any of that is, so I'm not even going to go into it. So I personally have always loved to travel, and given that someone else pays me to do that now, in addition to the fact that I love the work that I'm doing, this is 100% my dream job. I would say on average, now that we're like out of COVID, I'm going to be traveling probably like 12 to 16 times per year. We do have mandatory recalls to our office in Boston twice per year. And like I said on the last slide, I really enjoy that because it gives me the opportunity to connect with people that I normally would never cross paths with. People from SNAP, people from WIC. We just don't, like, our jobs never cross, so we don't get to work with each other. So I really enjoy that. And like when we were at our recall in December, a bunch of people from the SNAP branch were going to a Celtics game, and they were like, hey, we have an extra ticket. I was like, oh, pick me, pick me. So I got to go and, spend an evening with colleagues that I didn't know, and we had a great time. And that was fun. So an administrative review is the audit that the state agencies perform on the school food authorities to make sure that they are following the guidelines. I did have to go through that process once when I was a director. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of collecting documents. So, but when you are running your program the way that it is supposed to be run, it all goes very smoothly. And I was fortunate to connect with my auditor, and she had retired from the state agency right as COVID was starting. So when I was looking for this job, I contacted her and said, hey, will you be a reference for me? And she was like, yes, absolutely. Because she knows I'm passionate about this field and that I would be an asset to the position that I'm in now. And I really do just love it so much. So a procurement review is to make sure that the school food authorities are using fair and equitable business practices to spend their federal dollars. So whatever product they're looking for or service, equipment repair, groceries, paper products, anything like that, they have to basically like build a profile, and then it goes into a portal, and it gives multiple vendors the opportunity to bid on them and say, hey, I can give you these products for this price. And they do that to make sure that it's fair, instead of being like, well, my cousin's brother's uncle's dad has this business and we're just going to go with them. Like, that type of stuff is not allowed. So administrative reviews and procurement reviews are handled by the state agency, but I'm required to accompany 3 administrative reviews and 2 procurement reviews with New Hampshire each year. And I'm there to watch the state to make sure that they're picking up on everything that's an issue and then requiring the appropriate corrective action. So a management evaluation or an ME, that is when we as FNS go in and audit the state agency. And that's actually what I was doing last week. We were in Massachusetts, so there's a team of us. We're looking through a ton of paperwork. I probably read like 70 documents over the last couple of weeks. You know, and it's just so we go in, we make sure that they are overseeing all of their local level operators appropriately and that things are running well. So pre-COVID, they used to send people on what is referred to as a cross-regional ME. So someone from another region would come to Nero, or one of our people would go somewhere else. Now, they haven't started those back up yet. I'm interested to see if they do. I definitely keep telling my boss, I am happy to go on an ME in Hawaii if she needs me to do that, because why not, right? And then I also go on 1 to 2 meetings per year for my work group, CNSSW, and that's what both of these pictures are from. So the bottom picture is me riding on the train. That was my first train experience down there, down to Virginia, and it was great. And then the thing I like about the work group is it's 1 or 2 people from each region. So in this, I get to meet people who work in the school nutrition program branch, but they work in other regions. So the top picture is my friend Michelle, and we really connected when we were in Virginia together last year. Like, it was raining, or it had stopped raining, and we had gone out to dinner. We were just going to kind of go back to the hotel, and I was like, let's just hop on the train and see what happens. And so we ended up down in the National Mall Park? I don't know, but it's in DC, and so that's the White House that's behind us. So it's nice to connect with people in that way as well. So USD offers a wide variety of flexibility in their work schedule. You can work the traditional 5/8 schedule, you can work 4/10s, you can work 5/4/4, which is you work 9 hours per day on 4 days of the work week, and then you work a half day one of those days. And then there's the 5/4/9 schedule, which is what I work. So 8 days out of the pay period, I work 9 hours a day. One of the days I work 8 hours. And then I get every other Monday off, which is really, really nice. Excuse me. So if my Monday happens to be a holiday, then I get Tuesday off too, which is a sweet perk. So regarding the daily hours you work, you can keep them static and work the same hours each day, or you have the ability to flex up to an hour before and after your tour of duty. So I typically work 7 to 4:30 on my 9-hour days, but if one of my kids has an after-school event, I can flex my hours and work 6 to 3:30, or I could work 8 to 5:30, like it really doesn't matter. You can choose to work in the office. You can be on telework, which means you work from home 4 days a week and go into the office 1 day per week, or you can work remotely, which is what I do. I am considered a general schedule or GS employee. My job announcement was posted as a 9/11, but a target 12. So this means you can come in, you can get hired as either a GS9 or a GS11, but after 1 year, you promote until you reach a GS12. Because of my experience in education, I was brought in as an 11 in 2022, and then I promoted to a GS12 at my 1-year mark. And all GS employees are paid a base salary, but then you get an additional locality, and that depends on where you live to reflect your cost of living. So I did link mine, so you could see what that looks like. And I also linked for Albany, Schenectady, so you could see what it would be in your area. You know, and to close, I know I said I was going to talk about money, and I just want you to know that I now make $30,000 more per year. I am no longer a supervisor, and I work from home full time in what is truly my dream job. And I just say that because don't ever settle for less than what you deserve. This is a great field. There are a lot of opportunities, and don't be scared to think outside of the box ever. So I just want to thank you so much for your time. Of course, this ended up being a little bit longer than I had anticipated. Um, but I love my job. I love what I do. School nutrition is my passion. We need good RDs in this field. We need good RDs in the government. So get that experience and then, come work with me. Um, and please don't ever hesitate to reach out if you have questions, or if you ever need to interview anyone in this field, or if you're looking for a preceptor. I love taking on interns and just teaching you all about this world and what it's all about. So there's my contact information. Reach out anytime. Thank you so much.